let's start with where the Vikings actually came from. Picture the scene. Late 700s AD, Norway, Sweden, Denmark. Freezing winters, rocky soil, and not enough land for everyone. Families are fighting over tiny scraps of farmland. The population keeps growing, and the food is running out. Then someone had a brilliant idea. Why farm rocks when we can just sail to better land? They built longships. These things were amazing. They could sail in just 3 feet of water, beach anywhere, and were faster than anything else on the ocean. Here's a fun fact. Viking wasn't even a nationality. It was a job description. It just meant raider in Old Norse. That's the language they spoke in the olden days. But everything changed in the year 793 AD at a place called Lindisfarne in England. Imagine you're a monk. You wake up one morning and see ships with dragon heads carved on the front sailing toward you. Terrifying. The monks called them divine punishment from God. Now, these monks had lots of gold and other valuables. This gave the Vikings an idea. So let me get this straight. These monks take a vow of non-violence? Yep. And they hoard treasure? Uh-huh. And there's no army protecting them? Nope. That's just bad planning on their part. Should we tell them? Nah, loads about. So they stole all the gold from Lindisfarne. After that, word spread across Scandinavia like wildfire. Every ambitious young Norseman wanted in. Raiding became the hottest summer job in town. But not everyone was a raider. There were also traders, explorers, and farmers who wanted better lives for their families. By 800 AD, Viking crews were launching every spring. They went west to Britain, south to France, and east all the way to Russia. They had the best ships, better navigation skills than everyone else, and absolutely nothing to lose. These 3 small countries were about to give birth to an empire that would change the world. And their first real target was a little emerald island full of leprechauns and potatoes. Hands up if you guessed Ireland. Nope, not Ireland. Vikings showed up in the country in 795 AD, attacking monasteries left and right. But they didn't just raid and leave. Oh no, they moved in and they stayed. In 841, they founded Dublin. That's right, the Vikings built Ireland's biggest city from a tiny little fishing village. And they didn't stop there. Waterford, Cork, Limerick, Wexford, every single major Irish port city was down to the Vikings. They built them all. Here's a wild fact. Vikings basically invented Ireland's entire trading economy from scratch. Before they arrived, Ireland barely had any ports or trade routes. Brother Patrick, the Vikings are back! Again? That's the 3rd time this month. They keep borrowing our gold. Borrowing? But they never give it back. Should we build a wall? With what money? They took all our gold. Good point. Maybe we should pray harder? We've been praying for 3 months straight. Well, I'm out of ideas then. With their cool longboats, it was really hard for anyone to stop them. They could zip up rivers and streams where no other boats could go. Irish armies would set up defenses on the coast, and Vikings would just sail around them. Up a river, surprise! Then, once they got bored of just raiding everywhere, they started marrying Irish nobles. Then, they became Irish kings themselves. Dublin became a full Viking kingdom that lasted for over 300 years. It turned into one of the richest trading hubs in all of Europe. Vikings and Irish people intermarried so much that after a few generations, they basically became one people. You couldn't even tell who was Viking and who was Irish anymore. By 900 AD, Vikings controlled all the best land and ports in Ireland. They'd become the ruling class. So go ahead and cross Ireland off your list. They definitely ruled Ireland. But that was just their practice run. Maybe you picked France. Yeah, bad news, buddy. Normandy literally means land of the Northmen. The Northmen were what Europeans called Vikings, who came from the north, so Normandy is basically Viking land in Old French. Here's how it happened. In 911 AD, a Viking named Rollo was raiding France so hard that the French king, King Charles at the time, made a crazy deal.
Okay, Rollo, we need to talk.
About what? I'm busy raiding.
Well, that's the problem. How about we give you land if you stop attacking us?
You'll pay me to stop raiding you?
Basically, yes.
Deal. When do I move in?
Sire, this is genius! Giving Vikings land to make them stop! Ha ha!
And just like that, Normandy was born. Plot twist, Rollo was supposedly so ridiculously tall he couldn't even ride horses. He was too heavy, so he just walked everywhere like a giant. Here's another crazy fact. Rollo's great-great-great-grandson was William the Conqueror. And in 1066, William sailed across the Channel with his Viking army and invaded England. The Battle of Hastings? Yeah, that one took just one day. King Harold got killed by an arrow to the eye, and the entire English army collapsed. After winning, William took every single piece of land in England and gave it to his Norman Viking buddies. He kicked out all the English nobles and replaced them with his own guys. The entire country got new landlords overnight. Then he created something called the feudal system that completely reorganized how England worked. This is why English has so many French words today. The Viking Normans brought their language with them. Morning, everyone! Beautiful day to, Wait, who are you?
Oh, I am your new landlord.
What happened to Lord Edward?
Don't worry, William gave me his land.
Can he do that?
He's the king now, so yeah. But I've lived here my whole life. Cool story. Cool story. Rent's due on Friday.
So go ahead and cross England off your list too. That's another one ruled by Vikings. The Battle of Hastings changed English history forever, all because of Vikings' great-great-great-grandson decided to take over. What's your next guess? Thinking Italy? Spain? Portugal? Yeah, Vikings ruled them all. In 1061, Norman Vikings sailed down to Sicily and southern Italy. And guess what? They became kings within just 20 years. Nobody invited them, they just showed up and took over. They built castles so massive they're still standing 1,000 years later. You can visit them today in Palermo, Catania, and across southern Sicily. Sicily became one of the richest kingdoms in all of Europe under Viking rule. They controlled trade between Africa, Europe, and Asia. Cha-ching! Then they decided to join the Crusades, because why not add holy wars to the resume, right? Through marriage and conquest, Viking blood got into Portuguese and Spanish royal families too. So yeah, Italy, Portugal, and Spain, all Vikings.
Excuse me, who are you? Your new king.
But you're from France.
Actually, my grandfather was from Norway.
That makes no sense.
Look, do you wanna keep your shop or not?
Yes, Your Majesty.
Smart choice. Now, how about those taxes?
Huh? Taxes? There were no taxes before.
Well, there are now. Welcome to Norman Sicily.
Do you want to hear something crazy about America too? First, in 985, a Viking named Eric the Red sailed to Greenland and founded the first settlement there. His son, Leif Erikson, didn't stop though. He kept sailing west in the year 1000, and he landed in Vinland. That's modern-day Canada. He built a settlement called Los Olmedos. They stayed for years. They chopped wood, they fished, they traded with the natives. This was 500 years before Columbus. The settlement eventually failed because it was just too far away. They couldn't maintain supply lines all the way from Greenland. But then, 500 years later, Ferdinand and Isabella, the king and queen of Spain, who, by the way, had Viking DNA, funded Columbus's voyage to discover America. So, Vikings discovered America first, then their great-great-great-grandkids paid someone else to discover it again. You can't make this stuff up. So cross Italy, Spain, Portugal, and technically America and Greenland off your list too. But just wait until you hear where they went next. Did anyone guess some Eastern Europe? Ukraine, Belarus, Russia? All wrong. Ready for this? The word Russia literally comes from Vikings. Yep. In the 800s, Swedish Vikings grabbed their boats and rowed down rivers all the way to Kiev. Then they just built cities. Rus was the Slavic word for those Swedish boat people, and that's where Russia comes from. They became the rulers and kings here too. Stands to reason. They founded Kiev, Novgorod, and basically created the entire Russian state from scratch. Then they did something genius. They established massive trade routes from the Baltic Sea all the way down to the Black Sea. This connected Northern Europe with Constantinople and the Middle East. Vikings now controlled the trade between Europe and Asia. They became incredibly, ridiculously wealthy. We're talking swimming in gold rich. What do you think the coolest Viking job could have been? Well, there were these Viking bodyguards for the Byzantine emperor in Constantinople called the Varangian Guard. To do this job, you had to be 6 feet tall, blonde, and absolutely terrifying. They were the only guards allowed to carry giant axes into the emperor's bedroom. Think about that. The emperor trusted Vikings more than his own people, and they got paid a fortune. Varangian guards were some of the richest warriors in the world.
So, why should I hire Vikings?
Well, Your Majesty, nobody is crazy enough to fight them.
What about my own soldiers?
They might betray you for money.
And Vikings won't?
Vikings are loyal. Plus, they don't speak Greek, so they can't join conspiracies.
Oh, that's actually brilliant.
They also look terrifying with those giant axes.
Sold! Hire them all!
By the way, Constantinople is what people used to call Istanbul in Turkey, and they spoke Greek then, not Turkish. Vikings even carved graffiti in Istanbul's famous Hagia Sophia church, and it's still there today. It says Halfdan was here in Viking runes. So, cross Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Turkey, and basically all of Eastern Europe off of your list. So, which country is it? Are you still guessing? Let's check your calendar. Maybe that will give us a clue. As some of you brain boxes will know, every week has 7 days. 3 of the days come from the Romans. Can you guess where the other 4 come from? Tuesday comes from Tyr, the Viking god of war. Wednesday is Odin, the chief god. He's like the boss of the gods. And Thursday was named after Thor, the god of thunder. And Friday is Freya, the goddess of love. All of it Viking. Rome got Saturday from Saturn, and Sunday and Monday are kind of Roman-ish, but actually more like German and Spanish. So the Vikings literally own more of your week than the entire Roman Empire. And that's just the beginning of how deep Vikings went in our daily lives. Over 600 everyday English words are Viking. Anger, cake, die, egg, knife, skull, window, all Viking. Even more, sky, happy, husband, law, ugly, wrong, want, take, give, get. You use Viking words every single day without even knowing it. Lots of town names across Europe are Viking too. Anywhere ending in by or thorpe means it was a Viking settlement, like Grimsby, Derby, Rugby in England, Vestby across Scandinavia. They're everywhere. And the DNA evidence tells an even bigger story. Modern DNA tests show that 10% of Irish people have Viking DNA, 6% of English people, 4% of France's Normandy region, and there are traces across the entire continent. Millions of people are walking around with Viking ancestors and have absolutely zero clue. So let's tally up the kingdoms, shall we? Maybe Iceland wins? Nope. Iceland is Viking. They're literally the descendants. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, obviously Vikings. France, Vikings in Normandy. England, conquered by Vikings. Ireland, Viking cities everywhere. Italy, Norman Vikings. Spain and Portugal, Viking blood in their royal families. Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, founded by Vikings. Turkey? Viking bodyguards lived there. Every single country. And you know what's even more insane? America once bought land for 4 cents an acre, and nobody even knew what they were getting. Click here to watch the wild story of the Wild West.